All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this podcast. Thank you to everyone that's in the live chat already joining us, and thank you to anyone that's going to be watching this or hearing this later as well. We've got a good show for you today, someone that I've been meaning to talk to for a long time now, and I'm happy that I'm finally able to have her on the show. So first and foremost, please help me welcome to the show Rashmi Samant. Rashmi, welcome to the show.
Hello, Sham. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, it's an absolute. Yeah, it's a pleasure, and I'm happy that I'm finally able to have you on, because this is something that has, the way the situation's played out, it's bothered me a great deal, and I've been meaning to talk to you about it for a while. But before we really get into the meat and potatoes of the story, could you give me a little bit of a background about, yourself and how you got to Oxford and how you got involved in student politics in Oxford in general?
Well, so I'm just a simple engineer who did mechanical engineering and then applied for a degree in energy systems at Oxford. And it was very hard to get in, to be honest. It's very competitive, and it's something I've always wanted to do. So it's a vision I've had forever, and I've been working towards forever. So all 4 years of my undergrad, I used to do extra things like research. I used to take extra, languages. I picked up extra languages just to make my profile more holistic and more suitable for the Oxford, degree. And it's been a lot of hard work, so honestly. And student politics is something I did even as an undergraduate. So it's something that came naturally to me. So I thought, okay, this is probably the last time I'm going to be on campus if I hopefully not go for another DPhil or something. So, and then I thought it's the last time I get to be on campus. Why not live, the experience to the fullest and get involved with student politics? So it was just a bunch of these things. And I was not very confident about winning the election, to be honest, because I mean, I was just there for 5 months, on a 1-year master's course, and other people, they've been more serious contenders who've worked towards it more seriously. But I just wanted to have the satisfaction of, running for the president of the Oxford SU. It's something, you do for yourself, and, it's one of those things you do, put yourself out there, sort of give your self-confidence a sort of boost. So it was one of those things for me.
Right. And what did your campaign, or what was your student politics sort of revolving around? What kind of issues were they?
Well, so a lot of people, it was not based on any sort of ideology or anything. And it was just basic things I saw on campus. And I was like, okay, this needs to change because this is not relevant right now. It was basically with respect to the syllabi, which I found was still very colonial. So it was about decolonizing syllabi. It was about removing statues of slave owners because there were some very questionable figures, and they were still being celebrated in the name of philanthropy. And I thought that at least that should go away and we should remember them for what they were. These were some things apart from, say, increasing the budget for mental health at Oxford, better provisions for students during COVID, because we are still clearly suffering, because of COVID. So it was all about pushing for that, and also about the last point was about disinvesting our endowment from fossil fuels. Okay. So Oxford has a lot of endowment, billions of pounds, and it's usually tied up in investments with fossil fuels. So it was about disinvestment from there and lobbying for, investing the endowment in something more green and sustainable. So this was basically my idea. It was not, I don't know, like encouraged by some political ideology or something. Right. It's plain 4 things I saw on campus and I thought had to change. And energy systems, renewables, it's my degree. So I thought we could use some money being invested in green technology. So that was it. It was just basic things I saw around me. And my manifesto was basically born out of that. Nothing very fancy.
Yeah, the reason I wanted to ask you about, what issues your campaign was based around, because it does give us a lot of context when we discuss what comes next. Because obviously, whenever you're in any kind of position that grants you any sort of visibility, we live in a culture where people dig very, very deep into your past, and they're trying to find out stuff about you as soon as you have any sort of visibility. And very similar things happen to you as well. People had to go really, really far back into your social media history to find posts that they could possibly, let's say, misinterpret according to the way they felt. Let's put it that way. And again, the context of your student politics and the context of what the various planks that you ran your campaign on become very relevant here, because after the whole thing that, oh, her social media post, whatever, after the whole thing came out, I saw a couple of groups and a couple of people make some statements that really stuck out to me. And one of the statements, and we discussed this offline, was, I think, made by the Oxford Student Union's Campaign for Racial Awareness and Equality and the Oxford Students Union LGBTQ groups. But they made some sort of a statement about your situation. And they said in that statement very clearly that, yes, we see that there's evidence of wrongdoing, sure, whatever. But they also said in addition to that there is absolutely no suggestion of malicious intent, that we cannot determine that there's any malice in Rashmi when it comes to these communities. And I feel like, well, that should matter, right? Those things should matter, like intent, what Rashmi meant, or how Rashmi has meant those comments when she did post them. I think those should matter. And on top of that, her track record towards these communities, her track record with the Jewish community, with the Asian community, with things like that. I think with the trans community, that track record shouldn't matter. Like, if you had a bad track record with any of these communities, you wouldn't even have gotten to the position of being the student union president that you went to. And so after making that statement, it was very disappointing for me to hear that they were still saying that, well, there's no malicious intent here, but we still believe that she should step down and she should repent, and all of that stuff. And I was wondering what your take on that was.
I feel that the post that I made, even if I read it today, I did reach out to a person who leads the Jewish anti-Semitic campaign worldwide. So basically, people who are much older than me and who are out of academia, and I've discussed it with them, because I really wanted to I wanted to learn and find out what went wrong. And he said that it wasn't anti-Semitic in any way.
Right. If you
And
could just tell people what the caption was.
the caption was, this memorial casts a hollow reflection of the past atrocities, and
Right.
reflecting on it gives us the power to live and vouch for a better future. So it was all about a message of hope and about reflecting on the past atrocities. That was it. And I did show it to a bunch of people who are leading the World Anti-Semitic campaign, and they don't seem to feel anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitic is a very serious accusation. It is, and I
Yeah.
understand that, because the Jewish community, they have suffered a lot, and so I would never dare to make any sort of a comment, because I've never hated the Jewish community, or neither do I have a reason to hate them even now.
Yeah.
And so I don't see what is the exact point here. And when there is no malicious intent, and when the post is about acknowledging the sufferings, and about saying that, oh, this was bad, what happened was bad, and coming to this
Hmm.
memorial, we reflect on it, because memorials are set up for people to have a moment of reflection
Hmm.
about the past. And that was it. I was basically articulating my thoughts there, that that I had a moment of reflection as well about our history and how terrible it was.
Yeah.
So that was around it. And when a person is genuinely not meaning any malice, and even when the words do not convey them, branding them anti-Semitic, and I don't know what to say, and I don't know what was the intention or the motivation behind whatever post was made about me. And I'm just very upset that they did not reach out to me before making that statement. Had they
Yeah.
done that, we could have had a discussion about what exactly they felt so offensive or so anti-Semitic there, and we could have had that discussion in a more calm environment, instead of making it a social media trial. And to be very honest, when this issue was raised, I had the sensibility to archive all my posts. People still think that I deleted everything. I still haven't deleted anything, and everything is still archived because I had the sensibility that even if some people are claiming to feel uncomfortable by something that you might have said 5 years ago, 10 years ago,
Yeah.
20 years ago, when you were a kid, be it whatever, it is your primary responsibility as a responsible human to, make sure that, it's not still there and it's not still continuing to cause them any sort of discomfort. And I had that. And I did, archive them the moment, people were saying that, oh, we are uncomfortable. So even if it was through, trolling or whatever, whatever may be the means, I did have the sensibility to do it. And
Yeah.
at we have a as a stark contrast, we have a staff member at the history department who still proudly flaunts
Yeah.
a post against me, which is so bigoted, which is so
Yeah.
targeted, which is everything hate, which is which is meant with malice. And if any person reads it, they would find malice in it, and the intent was to dehumanize me, to demonize me, and nobody seems to have any problem with it. The same campaign, the campaign for racial awareness, and
Mm.
yeah, they don't seem to have any opinion about the open attack where there is a clear intent of malice.
So let's talk about this guy, because this guy, for people that don't know, is the edgiest edge lord that has ever edged. And he was, he decided to be the white knight for the entire woke community, and decided that you were so dangerous that he had to come after you personally. He had to stalk your social media. He had to stalk your parents' social media. And based on a photograph and a filter that was applied to a photograph, he was able to apparently discern that your family is a family of Hindutva supremacists, and that somehow there was an incredible line in that post where it said that coastal Karnataka is like a bastion of Islamophobic far right forces. Which I'm like, when did that happen to coastal Karnataka? I have no idea that coastal Karnataka was like that. But anyway, it was, yeah, I agree with you about that, about the way that that article is still out there, and that the person that posted that article is completely unapologetic about it. And the next thing I wanted to ask you is, a, what has been the sort of faculty's response, because this gentleman is part of the faculty. What has been the faculty's response to a post like this, which is clearly, it is an ad hominem attack. It is not a criticism of anything you've said or done. It is just, these are just ad hominem attacks. So how has the faculty responded to that post?
They did not, nobody has responded publicly or anything. And I had to file for harassment because nobody was ready to, the
Wow.
hypocrisy of the world is that, when there is a direct attack, nobody seems to think it's an attack, or, that it needs to be taken up. So I
Yeah.
had to muster up my, this thing, and then I had to file for harassment. And it's being pushed around, I think, through procedure, and
Hmm.
we are yet to see what procedure brings. So that's it. And there has been no formal, I mean, sort of I don't know, statement or anything about it yet.
And
So
you were talking
that's
about that group Cray as well, right? That group that wrote a statement about you. Did they have a response to this post that the faculty member made?
not that I can think
Okay.
of, not that I can recall. So yeah, I don't think there has been anything. And even the people who did make a statement, they did make a statement 1 month after the post was up. So for
Wow.
131 days, the post was still up, and then people were bothered, and then they came out to they actually came out to condemn me and not the
Yeah.
person who made the post, because they could have very well done that 31 days ago, or any one
Yeah.
of the days in those 31 days. So they came out and they put a joint statement because they were concerned that, the conversation was about Hinduism and Hindutva, and that sort of conversation shouldn't be happening in the
Yeah.
mainstream media. I mean, when a person has clearly come after my religion, then why shouldn't the conversation happen about
Yeah.
religion? it is what it is. I mean,
Yeah, because the post for people, people can go look it up, the post. But the post has nothing to do with, your activities or anything that your parents have necessarily done or anything like that. None of that is even mentioned in the post at all. The post goes directly after your religious and cultural background and your parents' religious and cultural background, and just having like a filter on a photograph means that you're somehow genocidal maniacs. And it's an extremely dishonest ad hominem attack. And the reason I think that there are massive double standards. Oh,
sorry
there we go.
about that.
No, no
Yeah.
worries at all. Happens all the time in a live show. But the reason I feel like, there are double standards is because I shudder to think that what the response in the university and among the students would have been if such ad hominem attacks and personal targeting of a Muslim student was done. And that's my opinion. I do think that if that had happened, the coverage of the media, the discussion of this on university, the reaction of the professors, it would have been radically different. And I do think that there is a bit of a double standard here. I don't know if you felt like there was, if I don't know if you personally felt like, there was more, that there should have been more discussion of this post and of this faculty member than actually ended up happening.
Well, I don't want to comment on that, I
Sure.
think, because, comparing it to other communities, and I mean, whatever each community does, they do it for themselves. And I think by the end of the day, if we want to see some action and some support, then we should bring it on. We should create that support within our community instead of, just being just salty that other communities have a better support system. I think
Yeah.
we should take it upon ourselves as a challenge to build a better support system within our community
Yeah.
because we don't see it. So
Yeah, I think
yeah.
that's a fair point. And speaking of support from within the community, I think there's a Hindu Students Society on campus as well. The
Mhm.
Oxford Hindu Students Society, they released a statement as well. And I read that statement. I think you said that they released like some sort of an updated statement, which is basically a rehash of the old statement, which I read. And the statement essentially also said that the whatever the faculty member posted, it was obviously wrong, and they should be removed from their post and they should apologize, which is all well and good, which is what should happen. But at the same time, they also said that in the statement that by you, Rashmi, bringing up the problem of like anti-Hindu discrimination or bigotry on college campus, you're trying somehow to evade responsibility for your actions. And I thought that was very unfortunate, because I thought that was, again, a very myopic view of the situation. Because if you look at the situation in a broader context, there is that broader context to it. There's the example of what's happening currently at Rutgers with Audrey Truschke. There's the example of what happened in Cambridge just a year ago with, I think there was another student, Mrityunjay Majumdar. There's another student that happened to him. There was the example of Amit Jani in Biden's campaign, who's not a student, but he was targeted by various groups, and there was a lot of pressure put on Biden's campaign to fire him just because his father had a photograph with Modi, and his father apparently voted for the BJP in the 2014 elections. So to sort of poo-poo the idea that there's a bit of a trend emerging of anti-Hindu discrimination and bias on campus, I thought that was very ignorant, and I thought that was very short-sighted. That was a very disappointing statement by the society. I don't know what your opinion on that was.
Well, I only hope that, I wish that they would have reached out to me to, know my side of things and to actually know what I'm going through or what my experience has been. Because as a Hindu, I feel that even I come under the, prerogative of being a part of their society. So I think even if I've had a bad experience and I'm, in their words, claiming to have a bad experience, then they should have reached out and found out more instead of coming to conclusions based on material which is out there. I think that should have been the case, and it would have given them more clarity about why or what the situation is, and how I've been dealing with it all alone for the past 31 days, even
Hmm.
when their statement was not out. Because and I think they've just asked for an apology from Dr. Sarkar and not for resignation, as far as
Okay.
I
Oh,
think
I'm
my
sorry. Okay.
knowledge of the statement goes. But I had to be clearly, I was asked to resign, and
Yeah.
there's this whole comparison that you can draw between these two sort of things. And I feel as a student community, we do have some sort of allegiance to fellow students and what they are going through. And if a member of staff decides to come after students for no reason whatsoever, then it is their primary responsibility to sort of make sure and to find out what's going on. But I mean, it's totally their prerogative, and I don't want to judge them or take them to task or whatever. But I only wish they did reach out and
Yeah.
find out what was going on before making strong statements.
Yeah, again, I do think, a little bit of criticism is warranted, because if you're going to make a statement about someone and their actions, I think it's only fair that you at least talk to them and get their side of the story before you make a statement that's going to be read by a lot of people, a statement that's ostensibly going to carry a lot of weight. I think it's only fair that you at least reach out to the person, get to know their point of view, and if you still disagree with them, that's absolutely fair. But the fact that they did not even reach out to you, did not even try to glean your side of the story, I think that's the part that's a little disappointing to me, and I see that it's disappointing to you as well, right?
Yeah, and I think it's defamatory to a certain extent because they
Yeah.
haven't taken it upon themselves to find find out the validity of the accusations against me, which is clearly under question because these are some very serious accusations, anti-Semitic, transphobia, because they've caused a lot of discomfort to our society, and I'm very well aware of that. And nobody should be that. And to be called that, and when I'm clearly saying that I'm not transphobic or anti-Semitic, I think they should have investigated the matter further before making such a defamatory statement about me, because it does sort of open them up to you know possible litigation in case somebody does take it up. I mean,
Yeah.
I seem to be out of energy because everybody is just coming for a pound of flesh of mine at this
I can
point. So
imagine. Yeah.
there's only so much that I can do. But there's only so much I can litigate at this point. But it is defamatory, to be honest, and it is out there on a public platform. So I only wish that they would have reached out.
What has been the response from the sort of broader Hindu community in Britain or in and around your college campus? Have they reached out? What has their response been like?
Yeah, the people who support me have always been supporting me, and they've been very supportive. And they're not the vocal crowd who would go out
Right.
there and sort of start a scene or another social media trial of sorts. So I
Right.
think, yeah, they've been there and they've been super supportive, and they've always been there. I think, but I think it's already there. Like the people have been there who haven't been there, but
Right.
right now all of this is turning into a war of ideology, so some sort of a different war of things about
Yeah.
proving oneself right or wrong, and not the actual issue, wherein clearly a 22-year-old was harassed and stalked by a senior staff member, and if you lay it bare, then that's it, what happened.
Yeah.
And that is something that needs to be brought into perspective and investigated, and there needs to be weight thrown around that to make sure that that doesn't happen to another student, to another 22-year-old.
Is that word being used often in these kinds of discussions? Because you use the correct word, because that's exactly what it was. It was harassment. It was harassment of a young student by a faculty member for something that, for like an immutable characteristic. You were born into a Hindu family, you come from a Hindu background. That's not something you can change about yourself necessarily. And so to attack someone for that, I can see that as nothing else but harassment from a person who is in a position of power in this university as well. Is that being brought up at all within university circles? I'm sure you're getting like private messages of support, but like publicly, is that being talked about at all?
No,
That's
it's
insane,
not being.
man.
Yeah. I mean, it just shows like how hypocritical our world is, I think, right now. Like you see like actual problems and people actually being harassed, and then do you see like a lot of actions being taken? Like it's, I think it's kind of visible in the society there, but like, when something serious happens and then suddenly no one's talking about it, and it's okay to not talk about it, but no one's talking publicly about it as harassment,
Right.
to be honest. They're just thinking, they talk of it as a post,
Right.
and I don't know, and the only conclusion seems to be that I shouldn't be judged based on my parents' actions. And
Right.
I'm like, excuse me, my parents' actions?
What
Are you
actions?
going after my parents now?
Yeah, and what
Exactly.
actions? Putting up a photo of Sri Ram on next to your photo, how is that an action of anything? You know, that's
Yeah.
kind of like saying that any Muslim in any part of the world that says, yeah, yeah, Allah, he's basically supporting the Taliban and ISIS. It's an absurd statement to make that somehow posing with a photo of Sri Ram is some kind of an action, some kind of a political statement. I don't understand that accusation at all.
Yeah, me neither. And have been finding it hard in the past 1 month to even
Yeah, I
make
can
sense
imagine.
of what's going on around me. And, people just want to make all these statements and people just want to pick it up and, throw it in this direction,
Yeah.
write long essays about it, and, decorate every part of it. So it's been going on, and I
Yeah.
don't see it stopping anytime soon.
So what are your, have you been in touch with the faculty, your own faculty with your department, and have you been in touch with like what should be the steps going forward? Are they helping you with any of that?
Well, yeah, my faculty has been taking care of my
Okay.
academics and, been thinking about our course and everything. And of course, their primary focus is to make sure that, I finish my course on time, and then,
Right.
and to help me, turn in my assignments and whatever help I need with that. But I think this investigation is out of bounds for them because they are not a part of the history department, and
Hmm.
so clearly it's not under their jurisdiction, but they've been doing their best to support me in every other way possible.
Right.
But of course, even they feel like that it's sort of hindering me from being 100% present for my academic
Right,
commitments, and that
definitely.
yeah, and that this needs to stop.
Right. Okay. And yeah, it is, just coming back to what we were talking about just a second ago as well. It is very interesting, and it is a shame because we've seen multiple examples on university campuses in the past where you had the very infamous, obviously, example of Brett Weinstein, who used to teach at Evergreen in the United States, who, for making a statement where he disagreed with sort of the popular student opinion at that point, was routinely harassed, and he was accused of racism, he was accused of white supremacy, and eventually he had to file a case with his university. And you have multiple cases where people have been disinvited from speaking on campuses, where campuses ostensibly support freedom of speech. It happened at Berkeley. It happened at Rutgers, where the whole Audrey Truschke thing is happening. Um, but at the same, so you have these ideas proliferating in college campuses, and you have the idea of intersectionality and how intersectionality needs to support oppressed peoples of color and all of that things. And when you look at a Hindu community, and when you look at a woman of color from a Hindu community, that should be a person that intersectionality should be supporting. But it seems to me that for some reason, you, being a woman of color from a Hindu background and all of that fun stuff, don't seem to be covered by the intersectionality insurance policy. Why do you think that is?
I think because my parents are visibly, they're considered to be Hindu, and
Hmm.
there's this visible tag of being right wing, so associated with my family, and that automatically makes me an untouchable for any sort of justice or
Right.
intersectionality, because there, I mean, the ideology, political ideology comes first before justice, or before
Right.
action points. It comes before everything. So even before you choose who you sort of champion for your cause, there's always this checked whether, they tick all the boxes and stuff like that. So maybe, there's this whole question of my background, and that doesn't
Yeah.
fit in the intersectionality of things, and it's sad.
It is sad. It is sad, and it's extremely unfair on you because it's almost like a new religious ideology where you've replaced the word God with social justice essentially, because you're doing the same old thing where you're attributing the sins of somebody's parents. Not to say that your parents have committed any sins anyway, but imagined sins of your parents are now being attributed to you, where you have absolutely nothing to do with that. That's the unfair part here. And I was reading some report somewhere, I think it was in the Daily Express, and they were quoting some British think tank called Civitas, where they were talking about how, like, Civitas has found that, kind of cancel culture and restrictions on free speech were pretty rampant in a third of UK universities. And they'd said that Cambridge and Oxford top the intolerance scale, where free speech has become like an impossible idea. This is according to Civitas. Before this whole thing happened to you, what were your impressions about the state of free speech on your college campus personally?
Well, I don't think I can make any comments on that because
Sure.
I belong to the MPLS department where we are engineers, and there's more free flow of thought within the engineering science department, and you're not immediately judged for anything you say or do politically.
Hmm.
And there's always people always consider intent before considering malice about everything. And I think these conversations about free speech and about political ideology, it's more like there in the social sciences and the humanities
Sure.
section of things. In the engineering science department, nobody judges anybody for any sort of like
Okay, so
political
you've never
ideology.
faced this before now.
Yeah, I think that's because of my background and the sort of, academic background that I hold. And, because I mean, engineers, we don't have these
Right.
conversations at all. And we have like, we could talk about other things, and, I think it's more accepting and more, I mean, unless somebody comes with an intent of malice, nobody, outright
Yeah.
judges anybody for anything. And there's no, you don't have to, you know, be very careful what you're, like, be very extra overly sensitive. Or I mean, it's more free, and you can, it's very friendly, and and people are genuinely nice. They don't have malicious intent, I guess. I don't think I'm able to articulate myself well, but I think the
No,
engineers
but I
will
get
get
it.
what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say.
No, I definitely do. I definitely do. The sciences are something that, that have to deal with these kinds of issues less. I think this is more of like an epidemic with social sciences and all of that kind of stuff. So I understand. It's good that you never, you didn't have to face these issues before, but I feel like you know, judging by the way this thing has sort of blown up after your after your election, it does indicate that a problem like this does exist on campus. How have you been dealing with this ever since this thing broke? And how have you been doing? How have you been dealing with this whole situation?
Well, not very well, I think. I mean, I
Right.
literally came home, and, coming home has been good. And then for 1 week, I thought, okay, like, let me just, leave this, and, I don't want to, talk about it, and, I'm just going to move on. But
Right.
then, this whole thing with the faculty, it's just not going down, and the post is still up, and, people are still talking about it, and people are talking crazy things, and against me, and this post is still up there. So I thought maybe I should take a stand. So then there was this whole phase of that, and then I haven't been taking too well. People say you should grow a thick skin and everything, but every time I see something negative coming
Yeah,
there
but
which
it's
is not
tricky to
true.
ask a 22-year-old who's this is her first experience of something like this to just immediately grow a thick skin. I think that's a little unfair.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been upset over the past few days, and I've been, having some issues as well. Every time there's an outpour of negative, say, comments, or there's this outpour of negative statements against me. There's this
Yeah.
point where I start feeling very upset that why are they saying this? Why are people so hell bent on trying to prove that you are somebody negative, whereas this society needs positive people, right? If someone's saying that they're not they don't hate any community, then that's a good thing, right? That they don't hate
Right.
Jews, they don't hate the Mandarin speaking community, they don't hate the trans community. Isn't that a good thing that they don't hate them? And why are people so hell bent on trying to convince someone that that hey, you hate them, you hate them, you hate them, and trying to
Yeah.
fit that ideology into someone? And so, I mean, it's been quite disturbing, honestly, and it doesn't help that people are just writing whatever they want to about me, and and then there's been a lot of negative, anonymous bullying that's been happening. So I feel
Mm.
that a lot of the mob, they take a lot of comfort behind anonymity, and there's been a lot of anonymous comments and a lot of anonymous messages that keep coming in, keep coming in, keep coming in, and keep they keep harassing. And all of these comments are very racist. They come after me for my color, they to tell I look like,
Really?
yeah, they're all very racist. And to think of it that that they're it's just very crazy. All of these
Yeah.
anonymous comments are very aggressive and very racist. And to think of it, it's crazy that these probably belong to the same community that champion, anti-racism and stuff like that. And then when they
Yeah.
come after somebody in an anonymous garb, then all of that goes to the, it just, by the end of the day, I just feel like it was all about disproving me, because if people are coming after me for my race and everything, then what's the difference? Like at this point, it
Yeah.
just feels like this feels terribly upsetting. And yeah, and there's
Yeah,
this
I can
part
imagine.
of
Like,
me.
how is it? Yeah, how is it constructive in any way that you spend your whole time talking about anti-racism, inclusivity, intersectionality, but at the slightest hint that somebody has done something wrong, at the slightest indication of that, you go after them with like racist slurs and religious-based slurs and stuff like that. You're basically defeating the purpose that you apparently are trying to uphold. Have has there been any discussion for you with your faculty, with peers, or something like that about any plans to go back to campus?
Well, I think it's completely up to me whether I want to go back or not, because
Sure.
with COVID, everything can be done remotely, and I've been able to do everything remotely. So they've been super supportive. But I think unless and until I feel safe about going back and about starting studies there, I don't think I would be doing it. And currently, as things stand, the staff is still there. He's still roaming around, and it just
That's
feels
incredible,
very,
man.
I don't know, insecure that I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be comfortable living there like as long as
Yeah.
he's there. That you just feel targeted of some sort. That a man like twice your age, who's capable, who knows who your parents are, and who knows everything about you. Like to stalk someone is to like take stock of information. So God knows what else he knows about me, where I live, or
Yeah.
stuff like that. So it's very scary and very creepy that that these things happen. And so, I mean, my college has been supportive, but there's only so much that people can do when these things become so public and it's all out there, and there's no proper concrete actions
Yeah.
as
Yeah,
such.
it's
So,
insanity, man. Like that's the part that absolutely baffles me. That there's this guy who's again twice your age. He stalked you, stalked your parents on social media, written extremely disparaging and abusive comments about you and your family, and he's just hanging around in campus. And they expect you to come back and resume your studies while this creep is just hanging around in campus. Because who knows what a person like this who's so driven to personally attack you, who knows what a person like this will do next, who knows how they'll try to target you next. And then if your faculty, if your university just expects you to waltz back into campus, that's extremely unreasonable. And it is a little bit upsetting that this is not being discussed much, because I feel like if you did not have the background that you do have, this would be a major talking point in this scenario.
yeah, yeah, and it's so unfortunate, like how people are just picking up statements from here and there, and putting
Yeah.
together articles even as we speak, just to disprove the sufferings that I've gone through, or whatever I've been through, and whatever this faculty is still doing. All that is currently, people are trying to take that out of focus, the fact that the post is still up, or he's still doing this, or that he's still there. And, they're spinning all these narratives. Oh, but that was not the reason why she resigned. You need to
Uh-huh.
make it more clear that, this is why she resigned. You need to change your narrative. I mean, this is about somebody who's actually suffering, who's actually gone through things, and all people care about, if you see the statements, is about the right narrative. And I don't know if you've read the statement. It ends with, "We discourage Miss Samant from making any further comments." It's quite
Yeah, yeah,
condescending. They want you to stop talking. And I mean,
yeah.
free speech, question mark.
That's incredible. Yeah, what happened to like women of color speak up? We are with you. What happened to all that? You know? Yeah, that goes out the window apparently in this situation. And
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
everything becomes situation specific, and everything is hypocritical in this society. I mean, just comes down to who fits, this sort of. It's not about the issue, or it's not about the sufferings, or it's not about, the fact that this toxicity should go away from society. It's
Yeah.
just about, I don't know, trying to write long essays and disprove someone and feel better about it, I think.
Yeah, I do think so. I think if it, unfortunately eventually this social justice and intersectionality and all these things that sound wonderful on paper, unfortunately in practice they're not translating that well, because what it seems to me is these groups are looking for is unconditional obedience. And if somebody isn't unconditionally obedient, and even if somebody is unconditionally obedient or completely agrees with their views or their ideas, but if you go out of the box, you were talking about that, it's important to place people in these boxes. And if you try to get out of the box even like a little bit, there's something about you, even something that you can't control necessarily, that is considered out of the box, then you're not part of the group, then you're immediately shunned, which is something that we're seeing with people not attacking the guy who's been, attacking you so viciously on social media and stalking you like the way they did. There's a question I think somebody, one of my patrons had also asked, which is relevant here. I think Swayambhu had asked, I understand the overwhelming online assault on Rashmi had led her to stepping back from the OUSU. Now that there's so many voices of support, including in the parliament, would she have stood her ground in hindsight if this support had come a little bit sooner? What lessons does she think that the Hindu diaspora can learn from this episode, if any?
Well, I think had I had the support back then, I would have stood my ground, to be very honest. At that point, I just felt like I was alone in the middle of the whole storm. I think one lesson we can learn is about how quickly we mobilize to certain issues, how quickly we stand in support of our own people, and that we are there for each other unconditionally. It's about that, without looking for, oh, like whether we stand to gain or lose anything from this or something. Just unconditionally stand behind each other, just so that we do recognize the fact that this could happen to us one day, and when it does, then we can count on the same sort of community to back us up. I think it's
Right.
basically mobilization of our community, that we need to be more, we need to learn about it, and we need to be more sharp about it and come together as a community.
Yeah, sooner. I couldn't agree more. And very finally, before I let you go, Rashmi, um, if what would you say, and what would be like a recommendation that you would make to the university or to the students that have made the comments that they've made? I'm not talking about that particular faculty member, because clearly he doesn't give a shit. But I'm talking about the university in general, other faculty and student groups or students in general that you think would be on your side in this issue, or would be on the side of sense in this issue. What would be something that you would say to them?
Well, I'd just like to thank them for being so unconditionally there and being supportive of this whole thing. And, I just encourage them to, uh, just, straight true to their ideology, and to, actually speak up more out there. Like, we can really use these voices, because the sound of the bullies is the loudest on social media right now, even if they are significantly
Yeah.
in the minority in terms of numbers. So we can really use, all these voices in a very strong way out there. So I would just say that, we need to speak up more often and we need to stand for each other more often. Even me, I was one of them. I would never go out and, stand out in public in support of someone just because I'm too scared of the bullies or
Yeah.
something like that. But once it's happened to me, then I do realize the importance of actually being, vocal out there. It's something I wish for everyone to realize sooner, and that they don't have to go through the sort of an experience to realize that, and, to come out more vocally in support.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think it's very important. This should be a lesson for the broader Indian diaspora out there in the West, that these kinds of things, we're seeing there's a bit of a pattern emerging. So sitting on the sidelines and keeping quiet and thinking that this kind of stuff will just go away is not really an option anymore. I think it's very important for the diaspora to speak up and to support people who find themselves in situations like these when they're being personally attacked for things that they have not necessarily even done. So I think wise words there, Rashmi. And once again, thank you for taking the time out. I know you're not doing too well, but thank you for taking the time out to come on my show and speak to me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was really nice to
Yeah,
come on.
absolutely. And listen, stick around with me offline for just a second when I go off. But guys, you can follow Rashmi. I'll leave her Twitter details in the description down below. You can go follow her there. You can show her some support. Uh, there's going to be some more stuff that we'll be doing on social media to gather some support for Rashmi and her case as well. So keep an eye out for that. You can listen to this podcast later on as well. The podcast links will be provided later. Other than that, we will see you next week with another podcast. And until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and we will see you guys next time.